Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Levi and this is Mopar V-Code. This episode we're going to be doing another continuation of the 70 GTX build series. This time we're going to be doing a little bit of housekeeping. Got a few things we need to address before we can fire it up. One of those things we need to do is flush all of our fuel lines. And when we do that, we're going to go ahead and put a specific measurement of fuel in our fuel tank. The tank is around a 19-gallon tank, so we're going to do increments of 4.75 gallons at a time and just kind of check to verify on our fuel gauge to see if we get quarter, half, three-quarter as we fill it up. Also, I will go ahead and flush the system out. We'll be taking the fuel line on the front of the block of the engine and popping that down and allowing the fuel pump to run and just kind of flush out anything that's least in that feed line, and we'll get that all cleared out. Once we get that taken care of, we'll check for leaks. Once we put that line back on, pressurize it up, we'll need to set our regulator. We're looking for 58 psi on our regulator, and then once we get that all established, we'll move on. We need to move on to our spark plugs. We need to get those installed. These are date coded spark plug wires. And they have a little chart that shows the length and their specific location, like what cylinder they actually go to, which is pretty nice. I also need to finish installing my new oil pressure sending unit, so we make sure we get a good reading when we get it fired up. We want to make sure we have good positive oil pressure. And then I have this Holley kickdown plate. This is an extension for that center throttle body leverage or linkage rather in the middle. If you remember from a couple episodes ago, the throttle cable coming off of the mounting bracket on the intake was kind of a ways away from lining up with the Phytech control linkage arm. So I ordered this guy here. This is just an offset, and it's a Holley performance part 20-35. That's all it says. There wasn't really much for directions or anything on it. It just looks like kind of what I need, and I think I can modify it if I need to make it work. So we'll mount this onto the Phytech arm, and then we'll mount our original 6-barrel throttle linkage stud. It has a terminal on both sides of it. One side has for the throttle cable to hook up to, the other side is for your kickdown linkage and return spring. So we'll get that installed. And then I discovered another issue while I was messing around with the carburetor, or the throttle bodies rather. The current fuel line that I have on there comes off of the throttle bodies at a 45 degree, and it kind of kicks it out. But the problem is when it comes out of the front throttle body down, it actually hits on my air cleaner base. So silly me, I was like, well, maybe I can just do a little notch, and that'll provide enough relief, and it won't be as noticeable. And of course it wasn't enough, so then I went a little bit farther and I was like, we're getting closer, but it's not quite there. So I went even farther, and it's just not going to work, and plus now it looks like crap. So I need to rectify that situation. We're going to get a little piece of metal and weld this back up and refinish this, correct that issue. But then on the throttle bodies themselves, we're going to redo that fuel line that mounts to the side. So we're going to replace the 45 degrees with these 90 degrees. These are for Golas, -6 to -6. And we're just going to remove the 45 and go to a 90. And this should lower our fuel line down and keep it closer to the throttle bodies. And it should provide ample clearance for that air cleaner base. Once we install the new 90-degree elbows, unfortunately I am going to have to bend some new fuel line in the front to go down to the bulk connector, down where the old mechanical fuel pump used to be. Bend it up, and to the beginning, the first T on the throttle body, the front throttle body. On the rear, same thing. We have to go from the ball connector that's mounted to the head, bend it up and line it back up with the rear T on the rear throttle body. So that's kind of what we're into here for this episode. I don't think it'll be too long of an episode, but just kind of some quick housekeeping before we can get this thing fired up. So let's get to it. Like I said, we'll remove all three of these 45-degree elbows and put 90s on there, and that should lower this line down and in, giving us plenty of clearance over our distributor area, and it should give us enough room underneath our air cleaner base. Alright, so this is the back side of that fuel log. I ended up doing like a 22.5 to 30 degree bend here to kick it over. And then I did kind of like a 75 or 80 degree angle to get kind of like this long angle here. I originally made one with just a 90 degree. I just felt like that was kind of like high up out of the way, like looked out of place. So I think that looks a lot better, kind of cutting it down at an angle like that. Alright, so we got that oil sending unit swapped out here. I will say a little cheat for guys for a stubborn one that you can't get out. So I started off with just trying to manhandle it and spin it with my bare hands. And I got it to turn just a few degrees. And I just thought maybe it was stuck, so I got the pliers out. And I could get on it just a little bit and get maybe just a little bit of turn at it, and then it would stop because of the deformation that I had created already. So that wasn't going to work. And then I tried to get a wrench on it, but it just wasn't able to lock cam over enough to get to the next tooth for some reason. So what I ended up doing, and this might save a guy later down the road, is just to take a pair of pliers, like a pair of pump pliers, and just grab a hold of that guy and just basically wiggle it until it snaps off. And then once you have it snapped off, then it's really easy. You just get a deep well socket with an extension and you can just unscrew it right out of there. So a little cheat for you guys if you're having troubles getting your sending unit out. There you go. we'll get on to moving on to the bracket here, the throttle body, or the throttle body extension bracket for the cable and the kickdown now, and we'll go from there. I'll get this stud taken off. So first of all, this stud fits right into this hole just fine. So that's kind of neat. I don't have to drill it out. Cool. And then I was gonna look and see if I need to line it up on the, if I need to hook it on the inside of the throttle body bracket or the outside to line up better with my cable. And it's looking like I need to go on the inside with the bracket. Yep, that's gonna be perfect. So we'll go ahead and do that. Cool. All right. That's like perfect, guys. And then we got our spring here. Nice. So I do have new clips coming for my throttle stud, for a clip for this, and then a clip for the kickdown linkage that I don't have yet, but I got all that coming. So I think that's gonna work pretty sweet. See if I can get you in here to take a look. Well, you can see it lined it up real nice. No binding, no nothing. Get this bad boy up here. There we go. Alright, so we've got our oil dropped out, filters changed out. Let's go ahead and drop us some fresh oil in there. Again, we're using that Valvoline VR1, just as 10W30. It has higher zinc properties, so I figure for, you know, breaking this thing back in, it's been sitting for a while, so it can't hurt. And it's kind of cheap enough to where we could put a few hours on it and then drop it out and not feel too bad about it. I've got some Mopar +4 power steering fluid. Remember, I already had the power steering reservoir off and the cooler. All that stuff is cleaned out and there's nothing in there. So there may be a little bit left in the gearbox, steering box, but I actually did turn it a little bit to pump out whatever is left in there. So we should have fresh fluid in there. We'll see how this works. Some people have mixed reviews on using this new stuff, but we're gonna give it a go. There we go. That's better. Let's just see where it's at on this stick. With these old power steerings, you just want to fill it to the very bottom. You don't want to fill it all the way to the top. As it gets hot, it'll just throw it out. And I'm sure we're going to have to add a little bit once it gets going, once it purges out the gearbox. Yeah, just a hair more. There we go. Yep. That's fine enough. Okay. 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 Alright, so I put some fuel in it. Should have about 1/4 of a tank, so let's see if this gauge is working. Because we put a new sender in the tank, so I want to make sure it's working right. Well, I mean, it came up to E, but it did not go to the 1/4. So, I might need to investigate that a little bit more later on, or I might get some more fuel later and try to fill it up to like top it off and make sure it goes to full. Maybe it's just not calibrated properly, but anyway, there's fuel in it, and let's go ahead and flush it, and we'll do the leak check after that. Oh, we're getting pretty close. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and set our pressure regulator. We need to bring it up. It's only like at 30 psi or so. We need to bring it up to 58 psi. I kind of rigged up this long extension with a 5mm Allen, which I can reach down there and slowly turn it and watch the gauge. And we'll get that dialed in. So you can see I've got it poke down there to the point to where I can spin it and then watch the gauge right here. So we'll just walk it into 58 and we'll lock the nut down. Alright, so we're set at 58, and we'll lock that jam nut down on the regulator, and our pressure should be set. Doing some leak checking here. Keep going. Sure. Let's see if we got any leaks here now. This is where it was giving us troubles before. I think we got it. Heck yeah. That one's dry too. That's all nice and dry. Nice. Let's see if this one's dry. Nice. Okay, one more to go. Let's see what we got. Looks good. Alright, so I think they came out pretty good. Got the rain guard or shield off of there. Like I said, it should, if you have an N96 with the air grabber, when you shut the hood, that air cleaner actually goes up in there. So this is what protects it. When you don't have this hood, it needs something right here across the front. I guess because rainwater will come through here and just saturate your entire air filter. So something new that I did not know until recently. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this, how this turned out. Like I said, we'll get it sandblasted. I'll get some filler on some of this raw metal work that I just did, and that'll dress that up pretty nicely, and then we'll get a fresh coat of paint on it. And That'll be all set. Alright guys, so I've got this air cleaner base all cleaned up here. Got it in some primer. I end up using some just regular body filler on that front edge where I made that repair. So I got it all wiped down with wax and grease remover and ready to put down some satin black finish. So go ahead and get it coated now. Alright guys, well hey, that's going to end it for this episode. I hope you got something out of this one. We went through a bunch of little things, going through the engine and getting those fittings all kind of sorted out, switching the 90s to 45 or 45s to 90s, rerouting that hard line, and then moving on to that throttle bracket. That throttle bracket really worked out great. So if you're looking for one on this kind of system, that's the way to go on that. And then we got the fluids changed, the oil filter and the oil, the power steering, got that topped off. Then we went ahead and added some fuel to it. Unfortunately, our fuel gauge doesn't seem to be working properly. So we're going to have to investigate that a little bit farther down the road. Didn't want to drag this episode out any longer than it already is. But that'll give us some good content later down the road. But after getting that done, fueled up, we went ahead and set the regulator. Got it set to about 58 psi, somewhere in there. That's right where the system needs. Did a leak check. I found one leak right on the fuel filter housing, which is not a real big deal. We just had to, I ended up cutting the flare off and reflaring that in, and that took care of the problem. So luckily that was the only fitting we had issues with. And then yeah, so got this thing all set up. We got the air cleaner set up here. Got the base, I painted it satin black, and the top is a Hemi orange. It's a little bit lighter than the engine color. As they came from factory, they were a little bit lighter. So I think it turned out great. I don't have the decal for them yet. I ordered them, but they hadn't showed up just yet. So we'll take care of that later down the road. But don't miss the next episode because we are getting this thing fired up for sure. So until then, catch you later. See ya.